Welcome to Swolehammer. As I've been getting more and more into Underworlds, there are some things here and there that I kind of learned and started to realize. So I wanted to share them with you guys, just some helpful tips that I kind of picked up along the way or learned myself. Note that there won't be any gameplay specific ones, just the process of getting into the game and figuring out exactly what you want to do and how. First off, push fit is not beginner friendly. This applies to Warhammer as a whole, but since all Underworld models are push fit, it deserves a mention. Without fail, as you're assembling your warband, one or two of your models will have obtuse instructions on how to piece the bits together, making it oddly frustrating at times. This is not a huge issue, but something for new players to be aware of. Also, if you're like me and glued together push fit models because I personally don't trust the models staying together, use the plastic glue sparingly because the glue can melt the connecting points and pegs because they're very thin on some of these models. To this day, Black Powder is the only model I assembled and immediately chucked because he was so gappy and flimsy, he better resembled a slinky more than an ogre when I was done. Number 2, keep the cards. This might seem obvious, but I have to reiterate, when you get your warband, make sure you keep the cards and keep them safe. GW doesn't sell warband cards separately in the event you lose or accidentally throw them away. While you can play the game with a Rivals deck, something we'll mention later, some of the older warbands are rare now and it's difficult to buy them again without succumbing to scalper prices. So if you don't have your cards, you're just kinda SOL. Number 3, figure out the format for you. Getting into Underworlds can be a little confusing because there are different formats. Since it is partially a card game, these formats pretty much suggest how much you want to engage into the deck building aspect of Underworlds or not. Rivals is the let's go format that allows you to take your Warband's cards or a Rivals deck out of the packaging and ready to play, get going, throw them on the table. Nemesis is the deck building format. This gives you freedom to mix and match cards to construct the best decks possible. Both Rivals and Nemesis are used in tournament play, while Nemesis is favored among more experienced players because they praise its flexibility. Other formats exist like Relic and Championship, but those are more niche. Number 4, warbands don't get reprinted often. As mentioned earlier, old warbands are rare, and even ones from a season or two ago start becoming difficult to find due to Underworld's smaller player base. Underworld's warbands don't get re-releases pretty much ever. The closest we get is a small versus box of 2 warbands in their current season without the boards or trinkets. Recently, we did get a highly unusual release that reboxed 2 of the warbands from the OG seasons of Underworld in a new starting set, which is pretty cool because they got updated cards because they didn't have their own cards in the first place. So if you remotely like a warband's models, I say grab it up as soon as possible because it'll be harder to find later. Number 5, Etsy is your friend. As with pretty much all the skirmish games like Warcry and Kill Team, Underworlds has a fair amount of independent support, especially on places like Etsy. People make extremely helpful things like organizers for your tokens and cards, among other items, and for a fair price. We've bought items like this for all the skirmish games, and Underworlds is no exception. It just makes quality of life so much better. So support local because GW is leaving money on the table with these hobby helpers. Number 6, the starter sets are great value. Back to giving GW more money, it must be said the newly released starter set and the starter sets for each season are pure value town. The starter set MSRPs at $60 and the season ones are usually around $80 to $90, and that's great because everything you need to play is right there. 2 warbands, boards, cards, tokens, etc. And for under $100, that's pretty rare for a GW product. I'm sure it can be a bit exhausting to collect multiple boards and sets of tokens after a while, but I prefer the cool design and easy to store nature of having different boards as opposed to Warcry or Kill Team where you get hordes of plastic terrain in each box set and it kind of just sits there and collects dust. And the last one, to bring it all together, Underworld's models have AOS and Warcry rules mostly. To maximize your hobby usage, yes, when you buy your Underworld's warbands, they have rules in Age of Sigmar, and almost all of them have rules in Warcry. For some reason, the Nethermaze season was just skipped over in Warcry, so hopefully you get those in the future. But if you want to dabble in bigger scale games, these purchases set you up for the future. I know a lot of people talk down on Underworlds models in Age of Sigmar because they're a bit complicated and don't always have the best rules. However, Rule of Cool as always, and they have been seeing more and more play because they are actually kinda useful. So that's it! I hope you guys enjoyed this new type of content, and thanks for watching if you got this far. We're looking to cover more games in the future on top of the ones we already do. Either way, this is Rafiq from Swolehammer. Stay swole.